Enter the Cumgeon is a top-down, pants-down 2D single-stick Souls-like. It got trending on Steam at the low price of $20, $5 off the original asking price. You traverse a literal sex dungeon with exclusively women as the captives, as the mage Kaede, a perfectly legal... Wait a minute. There wasn't a disclaimer saying that all the characters are above the age of 18? Oh no. And that's the plot for the game up until the ending. You heard me right, it doesn't explain its plot up until the very end.
It is preferable that the intro exists to immerse the player into the world so that they have investment in the action. Doubly so in Futanari since it allows men and women to insert themselves as both catcher and pitcher.
The ending also lacks a unique CG, so the purpose of such an ending is superfluous. Anyways, you didn't click on the video to hear me talking about plot, so let's get into the presentation.
My vagina has 2 sets of lips.
As alluded to earlier, it's
Just like Dark Souls!
in the sense that it has a dodge roll with invincibility frames. In terms of presentation, it utilizes environmental storytelling to create a foreboding atmosphere of despair by showing the fate of those before you who tried and failed, stuck in a loop of empty pleasure. The fact that they didn't have CGs for these trapped girls is a missed opportunity. I have a hard time getting hard when I can't even tell what's going on. I have a feeling that other fellow Chinkarinos also have a hard time interpreting the scenario. The CG themselves are very well animated. My only problem is that the humanoid characters, aside from our main, has inverted nipples, which I'm not a fan of. Getting a woman to uninvert means that you're either a good partner or
Mr. White Jism, I'm Mr. Spunk.
Having them be inverted can make someone feel as though the action is more like a business transaction than something actually pleasurable between two people, breaking player immersion. The sound design felt as though it didn't have a lot of effort put into it. When trying to emulate the sound of clapping cheeks, typically you want a little squish noise in it, so that the audience's brain thinks that it's a human vagina instead of thinking that it's a clay cock shoved in a boomwhacker. To show how little effort they put in, I tried making my own sounds. For reference, this is the sound that their team made. It's just too unprofessional. Now this is the one that I made. The main character's CG that's meant to show status effects is placed in the right. Normally, I'm not a fan of it, because it's typically implemented in HRPGs and indicates only the status of the main character without saying anything about the rest of the party. But since this is a single-player action game, the player only needs to care about what's happening to one character. And putting it on the right side makes gooning easier. The biggest downside to the scenes is that you can't skip them. Instead, you have to stick around 15 seconds after your character nuts. Monster Girl Quest has these H scenes at the end of an encounter when your character dies, but this game has it happen while you're being attacked, breaking the flow of combat. The gameplay is par for the course at this point, not only for Souls-like, but also for action RPGs in general. You got an invisible dodge roll, a ranged attack, and a poison swamp. But unlike other action RPGs, most enemies don't have conventional attacks. Being in contact with either an enemy or a substance like aphrodisiac gas will build up a meter that'll lead to an H scene. This system would work a lot better if there was different things that the player can do to prevent these things from building up. Unfortunately, there really isn't. The only things they can do is avoid the enemy attack and mash.
The only thing close to something different in terms of gameplay is the third level, in which you have to avoid lasers and lines of sight or get an H scene instantly.
This leads to the entire game kind of just blending together into this one bland experience, which isn't helped by the lack of upgrades the player gets throughout the entire game. The fact that these H scenes break up gameplay without making any meaningful setbacks is just annoying. Though in all honesty, they could go either way, but just pick a direction. If you want to have a more complicated way of making damage, well then you need an equally complicated way of avoiding it. If you want to have a straightforward way of avoiding damage, well then make the damage be straightforward to avoid. The control scheme, however, is absolutely brilliant, using WASD movement, shift for dodge, and spacebar for attack, which sets the player's right hand free to jerk themselves off. I suppose that this is Japan's penance for making their roads built the wrong way, and they now truly appreciate the superiority of doing things the right way. All jokes aside, this is one of the problems that it inherits from being a Souls-like. Not having entirely right-handed controls means that there's an accessibility problem. Thousands or even millions of gooners will have a significantly harder time jerking off while playing this game, not to mention that amputees and people without fingers will not be able to enjoy this game to the fullest extent. This game does make up for it, however, by passing the Bechdel test in every scene, with mentioning no men in the entire game.
Not to mention the inclusion of easy mode.
Taking all that into account, I give this game
A full, highest rating that I can issue, 10 out of 10, and it easily earns the badass seal of approval.
because I believe that it will fondly be remembered as a feminist masterpiece in the future.